One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Glory.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapons. Only gets, yes, glory is destined. Every day women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtapositioning us. Justice for all, just ain't specific enough. One sundown, women is revisiting us. Two and living is us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosie sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. Women go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, so we stand up. Shots we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, so we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh, yeah. Glory. Oh, glory. Glory. Oh, glory. Now the war is not over. The victory isn't won. But we'll fight on to the finish. And when it's all done, we'll cry glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. We'll cry glory. Oh, glory.
Selfless now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we don't go hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemy is legal, the king became regal. Started facing Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win this war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and power of the energy. Welcome to the story. We call victory the coming of the Lord. Our eyes can see the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. When
I remember that night so well. It brings tears to my eyes. You may have been there. That was the 50th anniversary of what happened in Selma to all those people on that bridge and what was going on in our country at the time. The ministers in Tulsa from across many denominations, from First Baptist downtown and the Trinity Episcopal Church and all Boston Avenue Methodists and all kinds of denominations, both in downtown and also North Tulsa. The black pastors joined us from Vernon AME Church and from a number of different churches in North Tulsa for that service in this church 50 years, now 55 years ago. We were commemorating that, so we got all these different pastors from those historic churches and some other ones to join us to recreate a service in this sanctuary to commemorate 50 years later. When that happened, the original service in 1965, it was the first interfaith service in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was the first interracial service in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was told it was as controversial back then to have both the Catholic bishop here as well as the Southern Baptists worshiping in the same service as it was to have black and white pastors and people together in a worship service in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1965. But these clergy came together and said, this is a moment in our country and it's a moment in our city when we need to stand together for what's right. And these pastors came together and they showed a powerful example, and they led the civil rights movement here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Instead of going down to Selma, as many were doing, they said, we need a march right here. And they did. They marched from this service. They went into downtown and they marched across downtown for Black lives. It's been an important part of what this church has been involved in since at least 1960 when my predecessor, Dr. John Wolfe, came to take over the leadership of this church. This week in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a group of ministers from 7 different denominations, including B'nai Emunah Synagogue, the Jewish community. We had a Methodist church, a Presbyterian church, a Lutheran church, Episcopal, Trinity Episcopal from downtown, and Fellowship Congregational. Reverend Chris Moore was really the leader who brought us all together for this moment. And we painted on our properties, all 8 of these congregations. If they're not painted already, they're in the process, but we've painted the words Black Lives Matter, because this mural that says Black Lives Matter is going to be covered over the one that we have here in Tulsa on Greenwood Avenue, where considered the worst race massacre of its kind in the United States happened. If there's one place in America where those words should remain and be clear, it should be right there in Greenwood. Black Lives Matter, because they clearly didn't to this city almost 100 years ago in 1921. But even though these murals on streets across America, all the way to Washington, D.C. by the White House, New York City, and all these other cities have found a way to keep theirs, Tulsa is covering up the one on Greenwood Ave. So our churches came together, just like they had done so many years ago after the beatings in Selma and the killings in Selma, which included a Unitarian minister, Reverend James Reeb, who was beaten and killed, and also a white Unitarian lay person who was driving marchers back after they arrived in Birmingham, and she was shot and killed as a driver because she was driving black folks back to Selma. So these 2 Unitarian Universalists were killed back in 1965, and Dr. Wolfe and these other pastors came together to say no more and to do their part. And that's what we did again this week. And I want to show you a small video, a few minutes, that I put together to show us painting the mural here in All Souls, and also to hear the voices of some of the people who did it, so you can understand why they did it. Watch this.
Sons of former slaves and the sons of former slaves will make me able to sit down together with the people of brotherhood. I have a
guys doing?
We're painting.
You're painting?
Yeah.
What are you painting?
Black Lives Matter mural.
Yeah, what does that mean to you?
Well, the color of my skin kind of affects it because, well, I'm black. Because not everything has changed. A lot has changed, but not everything. Some people are still saying black people aren't us. White people are better. When all of us are painting this, it's like saying black people are still matter, and a whole community of people painted this just to tell people that black lives still matter, and they always will.
Because it's kind of scary, you know?
Right.
So I wanted to still show my support. Saying that, you know, my life matters, my family's life matters, and for the people that might have forgot.
Right.
Because it's like, we know, like, every life matters, but right now, black lives are in danger.
One, I've been a member of this church for 40 years, and this is what we do. Number two, I have 3 white grandsons. I never worry that they will have police violence against them. So, but black grandmas worry about that every day. That's why I'm out here. Solidarity with all the other black grandmas.
I'm here because I know the city wants to take down the Black Lives Matter mural in downtown, and I really feel like that is wrong. I mean, I think it's so important, and we need to let the black community know that we support them and we love them.
I'm here because I believe messages really matter to everybody.
I wore a uniform and put my life on the country. I'm on the line for this country. And we're in 2020 and we're dealing with race issues still. So I wanted to do my part in just saying we matter, and we're hoping for a better tomorrow.
A lot of people of color have been killed unjustifiably, and I feel like a statement like this is making sure that our voices are heard along with everyone.
People can try to erase the mural, but they can't erase the movement. And I think that's just a very visual reminder of that the movement will continue no matter what the politics are around it. I think it's appropriate that churches, especially historically white churches, are taking this on. I think we have participated historically in the perpetuation of systemic racism in Tulsa, and I think it's up to us to do some of the work to dismantle white supremacy and systemic racism in our city. So I'm proud to see our churches taking that on.
Thank you.
I just think that it's time for America to face the past and wake up to the future.
I don't want to look back and think, oh, I could have done something.
Just kind of fed up with being fed up.
Letting Tulsa know that here at All Souls, Black Lives Matter.
So Brianna, you are the artist who did the original painting in Greenwood, as I understand.
Yes.
And then you're coming out and helping our churches to paint this. We're at All Souls right now. And can you just say a word about what this message means, why you got involved as an artist?
Well, originally it's because the history of Tulsa and the significance of Black Wall Street, and I was hoping that there would be a mural that would pop up, and so nothing was happening, and so I just kind of got together with the artists, and we made it happen in Greenwood, and then we've been fighting to save it ever since, and when they said that they're going to repave the street and get rid of it, you know, we were heartbroken.
Every time that anybody shows up to these things, I think they get a feel of what the heart of it really is, rather than, you know, what it's projected to be as far as, you know, anything else other than just positive and community.
It means a great deal to me. Why I'm doing it is because Black Lives Matter. I'm black and I think my life matters as much as anyone else's. And right now in society, it looks like we're trying to divide each other, and this brings us together. We have a lot of white people out here today supporting us, and I just think it's a wonderful thing for All Souls to be part of it. This is what we do. We try to bring people together, try to make sure that we all are included. So I appreciate it. And I want to thank All Souls for what they've done here.
The painting of that mural together, it was such a great feeling. We had children, we had people of all ages, we had veterans, and we had all kinds of people black and white, young and old, and it just felt beautiful. And we danced a little bit, and we painted, and we shared food and donuts, and it was just a great time. And I'm thinking there are people out there who will try to make it sound like those who are putting these words down are trying to be divisive or trying to cause problems. I heard some people posting it's a terrorist organization and other things. I just hope you understand and will share with other people that this is a beautiful movement of people trying to support black lives in a time when they need to be supported. And we have an incredible history in this country, and I know there's talk about trying to remove statues on one side, and there's attempts to try to stop teaching certain kinds of history that complicate some of the characters that we like to hold up as exemplars. And I want to talk a little bit about that history. This is the time of the Jewish High Holy Days right now, and having the rabbi with us, Rabbi Dan Kamen, was really powerful when we did this press conference this week about what we're doing. And I realized that the theme of the High Holy Days for the Jews is to recall and return and to recommit. And so I want us to think about that idea of recalling the history and recommitting ourselves to the work of love and making a better, fairer world, and the ideals that this country was founded on, in word certainly, if not always in deed. And so there's this new book out, I think it's fairly new, and someone was telling me about it. I've just ordered it, so I haven't read the book yet, but I was really fascinated by some of the excerpts that I heard about. And I want to share this as we talk about the history of America. And the book's called Caste, C-A-S-T-E, Caste. And in the book, they explain how Hitler and the Germans were looking at the United States Jim Crow laws and saying, how can they've got it right over there. We need to learn from them. They looked over there and said, they've figured out how to take the people who they see as less than and lower than, and they've created laws to keep those people down and away and separated and segregated. They can't come into the same schools, use the same drinking fountains, use the same bathrooms, use the same restaurants and hotels. And they said, we need to come up with a system like this. So they based the laws of Nazism on the laws of Jim Crow America. That's something we don't talk about very often, if ever. And so everything that the Nazis did was legal under the laws of Germany because they first changed the laws. Then they started gassing the Jews and the blacks and the handicapped and the gays and the Seventh-day Adventists and the others who they considered less than in society. But that was based on the American system at the time. In the song we just heard, Glory, they said Jim Crow underneath the bald eagle. Even though America was revered in the 30s as a country, this was going on. And you fast forward to the 1950s, and it's a time when a lot of white Americans think of America was in a kind of a golden era, a sort of heyday when people were wholesome and the country was wholesome and patriotic, but this was still going on at that time. In the book Caste, there's a story of when Martin Luther King goes to India to meet Gandhi to talk about nonviolence and for these two great leaders to be together. And at one point, Dr. King was invited to speak to a big group of people, and he was being introduced by a politician in India before this group to speak. And the politician introduced him by saying, "This is a famous American untouchable." Now, untouchable, if you don't know the caste system in India, they have 4 castes that you're born into: the religious caste, the business caste or professional caste, the military caste, or the worker caste. And you have these 4 castes, and you're born into them, and you can't change them. That's your job, that's your prescribed role in the society. And then underneath the 4 castes, they have what they call the Dalits in Sanskrit, which is often translated as the untouchables. These are people who are considered so polluted that you can't even touch them or you'll become polluted, or touch things that they touch. And so Dr. King was really offended when he said, what's going on? I come over here from America, and I'm speaking, and they introduce me as an untouchable? And then he thought about it, and he realized, you know what? That's right. I am an untouchable in America. I am considered so polluted by my culture that I can't use the bathrooms, I can't use certain restaurants, I can't go to school, my kids can't go to school with other kids because we're so polluted. We are, so black people were subjugated in this country. So we went from slavery to civil war to Jim Crow and lynching, all the way up until, this takes us all the way up until the 60s, into my lifetime. So it's not that, it hasn't been that long. It's been about the length of my life. I'm 52 now. It's about 55 years, 53, 4 years, that we've changed the laws so that legal subjugation and denunciation of black people in America was changed. The laws changed, so the legal side began to change. But all those hundreds of years that came before and all the results of that, we're still trying to get through all of those other pieces, all of the social pieces, the economic pieces. I don't like to talk about race without also talking about wealth. Because because race was created to divide us, divide the masses of us, so that while we're fighting over race, the folks with the most money continue to just keep going to the bank with more and more wealth while we fight about race. So I don't like to talk about race without also talking about wealth. If you think about wealth, just think about the last 6 months in America. The billionaires in America, I just heard the statistic from a reputable news source, have increased their wealth. The billionaires in America have increased their wealth by $850 billion since the pandemic. More and more money is being concentrated at the top of our system, and more and more people are suffering and struggling just to eat. We're going to do a collection in a few moments, an offering. Again, we've been doing this for months to provide food for people here in Tulsa who don't have enough food to eat. Their children don't have enough food to eat. And so we're trying to provide food so nobody starves. It's happening all over the country. And yet, Jeff Bezos, this is another interesting statistic, from his personal wealth today, he could give a 6-figure bonus to every single one of his 870,000 employees, a 6-figure bonus to everyone, almost 1 million employees, and he would still have more money than he had before the pandemic began. So I want to make sure that we're clear. You know, we gave money, millions, to those who died, the families of those who died in September 11th, 2001, in the trade towers. We gave money to the families who died in the Oklahoma City bombings. We still have not given any money or any redress to the people in Tulsa from 1921. That injustice, it's still an injustice that has not been repaired, not been redressed. And so there's serious conversations that need to happen in our country around reparations and what does that mean? And what can we do, and what's the right thing to do? So this is a really interesting time, and just this week, this was such a powerful week, because this week, also yesterday, Tulsa dedicated a historic marker for the first time in Greenwood that tells the story of the 1921 race massacre, written by the people of Greenwood. And on the back of this, and I'll show you some pictures in just a moment, on the back of this, it talks about lynching in America and how the almost 2,000 people that they've documented that were lynched between 1875 and the 1950s in America. And those are just the ones that are documented. They have to have 2 sources, news sources and others, to be able to document the names. In Oklahoma, I think it's 78. It's right in that 70 or 80, right in the 70 to 80 range of documented lynchings that happened in Oklahoma during that period. This is an unbelievable history. Does it mean that America is an awful country? Does it mean that America is terrible? No. What we need to be able to do is be able to hold the history of our country, both the great things that we've done and also the things that we have done that have been harmful, so that we can learn from them and grow from them. I know I'm preaching to the choir this morning, but I just want to acknowledge it. I want it to be said out loud, because we put the Black Lives Matter sign out there not to make some announcement to anybody else, but to remind ourselves more than anything that Black Lives Matter here, and that might mean us changing some of the things that we do. We've been changing things in this church in terms of worship, in terms of programming, in terms of staffing and other things for the last over a decade now. And we're going to continue to do that work and continue to figure out ways to at least change the things that we can change, which is our congregation, to make it as inclusive and welcoming and just as possible. And as I conclude, I want to show you another little video in a moment, but I did want to say, the theologian James Luther Adams, who was a Unitarian theologian who taught in Harvard, and he said that our religion, Unitarian Universalism, is personal, very personal, but it's not private. And what he meant by that was that it's very personal to each one of us. We all are taking the parts, whether it's from different scriptures and philosophies and rituals that make sense to us and that are meaningful to us, and we are using those to build our spiritual lives. And we give people the freedom to believe and to practice in the ways that make most sense to them from out of their own hearts and their own minds. And that's the beauty of the freedom of this church and what creates the great diversity that we have. So it's very personal, our religion, for each one of us. But what James Luther Adams says is it is not and cannot be private. The idea is you can't keep your religion to yourself so that you don't use your values to change the world, to make a difference in the world. And so that's why we do service, and that's why we try to do things like the mural and the services and the marches and all the kinds of things that we do, because our religion may be very personal, but it can't be private. James Luther Adams was around during the Second World War, and he watched how the churches stayed silent during Nazism in Germany and other things, and how the churches stayed silent during so much of the Jim Crow era and even slavery. And so he was saying, religion that is private is a sham. Religion that does not make an impact on society is a sham. It's not moral and it's not just. And so he encouraged us to make sure Unitarian Universalism is personal, but it's never private. I want to share with you the words of a prayer of confession that the ministers who were involved in the painting of the murals from these different communities shared as part of the dedication ceremony yesterday down on Greenwood. And these are words that we read. I was a part of this group, and he said, "Oh God, we who inherited advantages and privileges simply by being born white confess that we have participated in and perpetuated these human systems by our very being that oppress black people and other people of color. We remember the events that happened here," talking about Greenwood and Tulsa, 1921, almost 100 years ago, and we stand in the same spot as we were for this ceremony to apologize on behalf of the churches who should have rejected the racist attacks, to confess and reject the actions of some of the very churchgoers themselves who have twisted the message of God's love for all people into white supremacy and ideas of white superiority. As we work to become more aware of the ways that we participate in and benefit from racism, God, let us not respond with self-recrimination or shame, which helps no one. We pledge instead, with your grace and spirit, to have the courage to break the silence, and yet to hold enough silence to listen to people of color speak, and black people in our communities speak the truths that we need to hear, and to muster enough trust in them and in you, O God, to let go of some of the advantages and privileges that come at the expense of other people's well-being and full humanity. This we pray in your holy name, spoken in many tongues and many denominations on behalf of all people. Amen. And I want to say that some people trip over that word privilege these days because of it can be a struggle for folks. And I just want to say one word about that. Some of the things that people consider privilege, I would say, are just human rights. Basic human rights. The fact that I don't get followed when I go into a store the same way that some of my black and other friends of color might get followed or tagged by security, those types of things. That's not, we call it often, it gets called a privilege in these conversations. That's a basic human right that everybody should have. So I'm not looking to give up that privilege. I'm looking to share that with everybody. So a lot of what we call privilege is not a privilege. It's something everybody should have. It only becomes a privilege because it's only given to some people within society. So let us share the human rights that are deserved by all people in our world today. And as we share with our Jewish siblings the sense of the high holy days and the movement towards atonement, at-one-ment, may we find in our own hearts the incredible gift that this is to us, to all of us, when we do this work, and we do this work with integrity and with an open heart and with compassion and with love. Thank you, All Souls, for supporting me and our intercultural team and others in putting down the mural and in doing the work as best we know how to love beyond belief. People may criticize certain decisions that we make, and we may get it wrong from time to time, and is it the best thing, and does it make sense to paint the mural or not paint the mural? I don't know. We don't know everything we do. Is it the right thing always? Is it the best thing? How's it going to be in the span of history? But we're going to keep trying our best, and we're going to do it with love, and we're going to listen, and we're going to learn, and we're going to keep doing it together, even when we're far apart. I love you, and I miss you, and I'm just so proud to be a part of you and this community together. Please watch this short video of Pastor David Smith and Reverend Gerald Davis yesterday. It's just a 2-minute video of them and their contributions to this wonderful dedication.
To leave me. Can you help me sing it? Come on. I don't feel no ways hard. I've come too far. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me. Nobody told me the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Amen. We must understand that this is important not only for us right now, but all the generations that will come after us. God is with you. God is in you. Amen. I'm not separating anybody from this thing about race, because that was a lie. We know that. Right. We know why they separated us. We are supposed to be interdependent. If you look at nature, you look at trees, everybody depends. All the living things depend on each other. That's interdependence. Why are human beings thinking they're not part of that? Right. We all need to be restored to interdependence. So I'm saying to you right now, please understand, pay attention to what happened, to what's going on right now. Use what you have to do the good things for now and in the future. See yourself as part instead of a part. You got that? Yeah. Say amen, I'll say amen.
Amen. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. hand. Precious Lord, and thee.